Partner 26F of 7 years left me 28M at the altar and now wants me to take her back. My head is at a million places right now, so excuse my incoherency. My girlfriend, fiancé, ex-girlfriend, had been dating since she was 19 and I was 21. We've been through everything together, and basically grown up together. I've always known that when she really panics, she tends to run away from things. She used to randomly break up with me and try to dip when we were very young, but we talked it through and got better at that, and she hasn't done that for years now. Anyway, I proposed a year ago, and it was hardly a surprise. We'd been discussing marriage for years. We both knew we'd be on board to do this after she finished her MBA and got a job in my city. Everything was perfect. The past year has been very hectic in planning a wedding, since we're both from another country where grand weddings are the norm, and we had to fly people out, etc. About 2-3 months ago, the nerves started to hit her and she tried to talk to me about it. I will acknowledge my faults here. She did try to bring it up to me that she was nervous, and the whole ordeal of a grand wedding was stressing her out. Ideally, she would have wanted a small destination wedding with a big party afterwards, but due to both of our families requesting a big wedding and inviting all their friends, we succumbed. She was also nervous about the commitment of marriage, finances, other things. All of this we had discussed before, but I guess she just needed reassurance. However, in hindsight, I realize now that every time she brought it up to me before that she was anxious, I chalked it up to the normal cold feet people get, and would just say it'll be fine and brushed it off. I was also stressed with a lot of work to do before I took my long leave, and planning and budgeting and all of it. We both make very good money, but this wedding was going out of budget, and we didn't want to take any money from our parents. All of it got pretty stressful for both of us. She seemed a little jittery the night before as well. I told her to calm down and just sleep. Mostly I was very excited to make her my wife, something I have been dreaming of since the day we started dating. She's the love of my life, and it was still hard to believe she was choosing to marry me. I was the happiest man alive. On the day of the wedding, she dipped. She left me a note apologizing and saying she couldn't do all of this, and just ran. I don't even know where she went. All of it unfolded so quickly, and it was almost like a movie, all our family members coming into my room while I was ready to walk out onto the altar, asking me where she was, etc. Pretty traumatic, and I ended up crying in front of all my family and friends. Our parents handled the guests and all of it while I just went home, heartbroken. She wasn't at home. I spent the entire day calling and texting her, and her phone was switched off. She walked in at night, at 10-11 p.m., and just kept crying and apologizing. I told her to just go sleep and I need time to think about everything that happened. Now I'm turning to Reddit because I don't know what to do anymore. She has apologized multiple times and wants me back and says she's even ready to do the whole grand wedding again, and she regrets having run away in a momentary lapse of judgment. She knows she wants to be with me, but she just panicked and got cold feet. I can't imagine my life without her, but at the same time my trust is broken. I don't understand why she couldn't just be more of an adult and tell me properly before the wedding, although she insists she tried to. I feel disrespected and just heartbroken, and embarrassed that I had to go through all of that. I don't know if I can or should forgive her. What if she does this again and runs at some other important event, like she did on the most important day of my life? Any advice or suggestions on how to proceed, if I can continue with this relationship, or if I should just cut my losses and move on? Thank you for reading this far. Edit for some clarifications. Wow, okay, I did not expect to get these many responses on my post, and I have read through every single one of them. I appreciate all of you for taking out the time to read this and give me advice. There are some things I realize I should clarify or elaborate on based on the comments. Why she ran, I don't think it was the marriage bit. Getting married was not going to change a lot about our relationship anyway, and I know she was just as excited about getting married as I was. I should mention that while both our parents wanted a grand wedding, mine were way more insistent on it than hers. Her parents would have been happy with whatever choice she was happy with, even a court marriage. Mine insisted on a bigger wedding as they believed if we had a small one it would make relatives and friends think we are poor, and she felt pressured to say yes because she wanted them to like her, and she knows how much I love my mom and didn't want me to have to choose. The financial bit, she makes much more money than me and she funded at least 70–80% of the wedding expenses. She offered, and was happy to do so. If she hadn't offered that, my parents would have had to step in and fund it, which she wasn't comfortable with. The financial stress of it was getting to both of us, but probably more to her than me. We've discussed finances in depth, and I have financially supported her when she was doing her MBA, and both of us are comfortable with the fact that she earns a lot more now and will contribute more to our expenses. It's all hitting me now that she ended up burning so much money on a wedding she didn't want, just to make sure my parents didn't dislike her. The history of running away she used to break up and dip from the relationship in the initial 2–3 years of our relationship, and after working on it that time we've really managed to get over it. She hasn't suggested breaking up or wanting to run away for the past 3–4 years at least. I don't know if I'll be able to trust her because when she gets anxious she can't think about me like she didn't in this situation and didn't consider the humiliation I had to go through, but I do trust her to not run away when we have kids or at other difficult points in life. I think. I'm not really sure, it's all hard to process right now. Thank you so much for all your advice. I will be taking a few days away from her to think about all of it and then decide on the next steps. Although yes, therapy is a starting point for both of us individually at least. Redditor's reactions, story 2 after. Redditor 1, why would you ever stay with someone who always when things get difficult abandons you? There is no trust. Redditor follow-up, I was op for 10 years. Only main difference was I was the breadwinner. She left me 3 times in our relationship, the 3rd time ending our engagement. Each time there was some other option and something we were working through. Each time she'd regret it and come back. On the last occasion, when we were engaged, she left me for a guy in her program a week before my birthday and our anniversary, and wanted to start again about 2 months thereafter. Rereading again is painstaking because Op realizes his emotions and concerns will never be considered in these scenarios and still wants to work through it. I felt the same for so long, kept trying to hold on to someone so ready to let me go. I still love her, but could never trust her. Op sounds like he's in the same place. In so much love he doesn't realize even with kids she will abandon him when it becomes more and more stressful between minimal sleep, and increased financial and temporal responsibilities. It was the most heartbreaking thing I've done in my life to block her. It's still hard writing this, but how can someone trust a person that consistently leaves in stressful scenarios, especially when you always were by their side for theirs? Op. However hard it is, know this, after all that, I found someone who stands with me when I cry and when things are hard. Redditor 2, she left you at the altar and you're on Reddit asking what to do. You say you don't trust her, so TBH this relationship is over. She humiliated you in front of all your family and friends, and now she says she's ready for the big wedding. After she just wasted all the time and money spent on the first one. You would be a fool to just forget this and take her back. She has a history of randomly breaking up with you, she left you at the altar, she will run again. She has proven to you time and time again that when things get tough, she will leave you. Redditor follow-up, yeah. I'd maybe give her a chance, but turn it down the heaviness of the relationship considerable and wait a long time before broaching marriage again. And next time, say the local court, no more elaborate plans. And that's being generous. Redditor 3, to be honest it sounds like she needs some serious therapy before making any additional commitments like getting back together or getting married. Her reaction to stress is immature and lacking in self-control, which are traits that don't align with taking vows and dedicating yourself to another person. I think you need some therapy too after such a traumatic experience. Don't rush back into being together. You have time and it's worth taking a step back to reevaluate. The thing is, having a wedding is certainly not the most stressful situation you'll face in a marriage, and having a partner who will run away at times of high pressure is just not workable. What if, God forbid, you got a terrible diagnosis? Or lost your jobs? Had a home burned down? Not to mention the entire adventure of having kids if that's in your plans for the future. Will you ever be able to trust honestly that the next stressful hurdle won't leave you standing alone and abandoned again? Redditor follow-up, came here to suggest this therapy all-round individual and together, and maybe with someone who is familiar with their cultural background and can understand the pressures they are under. Story 2. My M38 wife F35 has made me feel unwanted for the holidays, and now I'm at home by myself. We've been married for almost 10 years, but together in total for nearly 15. Admittedly, we have hit a bit of a rough patch lately and space was needed for both of us. This year we're in line to spend time with her family 350 miles away, so she flew there a week ahead of the holidays. Everything was fine, it wasn't an argument, we totally understood one another and enjoyed our space for a few days. We would talk throughout the days, FaceTime, share photos, etc., everything was fine. When this past weekend was getting closer, she asked me what day I was coming and I said most likely Saturday. She remembered a comment I made about traffic weeks before when I suggested Monday as a possibility and said she was planning for me to come Monday. At first I didn't remember this comment, but it eventually came back to me. What bothers me was I also mentioned Saturday and Sunday, but all she hung on to was Monday. It made me feel like she wanted to be away from me as long as possible. We talked through it and I thought things were okay after that. Friday comes along and she starts making comments about how it's not been enough time, it's been a week by now and she needs a few more days. I start explaining it doesn't make sense for me to drive down after work on a weekday, only to be cooped up in a spare bedroom working remotely when I can do that from our own home. Driving 8 hours only to work, have a day of Thanksgiving, and then turn right around and come right back home just does not make sense. At that point I stated I didn't feel welcome and said I will just stay home. Rather than giving a little on her side and saying, hey, I get it. Don't wait until Monday, it makes more sense for you to drive down on Saturday or Sunday. All I got in return was you don't need to spend the holiday alone. You can go visit your family. Visiting my family is out of the question since it would be the exact same scenario, not to mention put me in a position to answer questions about why I'm alone. I've explained to her that this was actually pretty hurtful. I wasn't angry, I nicely explained my position and said it really bothered me. All I've received in return is a basic "you can come" text message, since I've explained it to her. No apology, no understanding, nothing. To make it worse, she keeps making a comment saying I'm not going to beg you to come. That's fine, I don't expect you to beg me. But maybe at least make me feel wanted and welcomed. I feel like the only thing I'm getting in return is a pity invite, so I'll stop bothering her about it. So here I am, it's Monday, I'm by myself. I want to be with my wife. I want to spend the holiday with her. I've explained that I don't feel welcome. I've explained that I'm hurt. And all I get in return is you can come, and I never said you couldn't come. She had an opportunity to say she wanted me there, but instead told me to go visit my family. I really don't know what to do. Story 3, my 31M ex-wife 31F just died, and my children and I are not invited to the funeral. I don't know how to explain to them what's happened. About 2 years ago, my family went through an ordeal that ended in a bitter divorce, and eventually, no visitation and a restraining order for my ex. It was an intensely painful experience. As it turned out, her mother had been abusing one of our daughters, Rosie, almost 9 now, pretty severely, with my ex's consent. When I tried to put a stop to that, my ex became increasingly violent until there was no other option but to go through the courts and get a restraining order. We have 3 children together in total, Rosie and Violet, who are both almost 9, and Lucas, who's 6 now. I got the news early this morning that my ex-wife died. I don't want to get into specifics, but it was a horrible accident. I don't know how to feel. I gave this woman my whole life once, and there was a time I would have done anything for her. I did love her. It's hard to grieve her, though, after everything that's happened. Right now, I just feel numb, like I'm in shock. The thing I need advice about: my children and I were banned from her funeral. She applied for and received an annulment of our marriage, claiming I was possessed by demons, and her family is using that to keep my family away from the services. Even if we weren't banned, I would not want to expose my children to their grandmother, ever again. I don't know how to tell my kids that their mother is dead. That there will never be a reconciliation. They will never get closure. They don't even get to say goodbye. I know my son, at least, misses his mother desperately, and I don't know what this news will do to him. I don't even know if I should say anything while Thanksgiving break is going on. I know I will have to tell them eventually. She's been allowed to call them once a week for the past few months, and they'll definitely notice tomorrow when that doesn't come. What do I do? How do I explain any of this to them? Edit: the annulment was religious. No, there was no legal system that approved this ruling. The divorce was on the grounds of her and her mother's abuse. The religious annulment was so she could remarry within the bounds of the church. We live in America. Story 4, my wife met someone else and lost herself. 5 years ago I met the love of my life. We moved in together and got engaged pretty fast, and it felt right. We got married almost 2 years ago, and I had never been happier. We are both 32F. I had some issues with my health, both mental and physical, and my wife was a huge help and support for me. About a year ago I started to see some changes in my wife's behavior, and I tried to get her to get some help. She seemed to be stressed, overwhelmed and tired, and I was really worried about her. The more I worried and tried to talk about it, the more she got annoyed with me. So I dropped the subject. Then she met someone. She told me that she had a crush, and the person had a crush on my wife. She said that it didn't mean anything, that it was just a crush and she wanted just me, and that she wouldn't see the person. But suddenly she felt that the connection was so strong that she had to see the person and figure out what the connection means. Then the situation escalated real bad. She started to question if people are supposed to be with just one person, and she couldn't say that she didn't want anything more than friendship with the person. She said that she doesn't know herself anymore. We went to see a therapist, but we just can't get to the same page. Now we have reached a point where we have separated, and she told me that she can't figure out her own problems while thinking how I feel. She told me that she can't work on our relationship, and that she needs to be free. Whatever that means. So I have set her free and filed for a divorce. I'm shattered and I hate it, but I miss her like hell. She is being so selfish, and she is not the woman who I married. But as I have lost the one person who was always there and who I would like to talk to about this, I'm turning to you guys. I feel like I've made a mistake and I should fight for my person, but I know that I can't do all the fighting on my own. She isn't fighting for me, and it feels like she was waiting for me to make the hard decision for her. So if you have gone through something similar, I would love to hear about how you got over losing the love of your life. And maybe some validation that I have the right to feel all these feelings, and I deserve someone who wants me even in hard times. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, marriage is not a guarantee against apathy and emotional betrayal. All you can do is pick up the pieces and live for your future. Every moment spent living in the past is a piece of the present that is not being treasured. Redditor 2, of course your feelings are valid. But remember, you can fight for your relationship all you want, it takes two people to fight for that relationship. If the other side is not into fighting, it will be a fight that you will lose. And if you do not watch out, you will lose yourself too. Choose yourself. Be strong, provide a certain emotional distance between the both of you. If she feels you are not available anymore for her, she might reconsider her actions. And then it is up to you if you still want Het to reconsider. Went through the same thing, sort of. Wife got strange very fast after 10 years marriage. 6 months later it came out she cheated on me with her ex. We are still here, but it is a very thin line. Answer, thanks for this, I really needed to hear this. I am choosing myself, and I trust that I know what is best for me. I know that I can't get over the fact that she used to be so sure about us and suddenly questions everything, so I won't be giving a second chance. Redditor 3, you are 100% valid to be hurt and angry. That is not how you behave in a monogamous marriage. She made several bad choices to get where you are, and you reserve the right to be mad at her for taking action on knowingly hurting the relationship. Can you say you never saw it coming, or if you think hard enough can you see where this part of her existed before? Maybe she's exhibited this behavior outside of your relationship, and maybe her perfection was more out of character. Answer, I didn't see this coming, that she would have to leave me to figure herself out. I did see that she had issues from childhood and when she was a teen that she had not worked out. I just hoped that I could help her to get through them, or at least get her to go to therapy. But it took this other person to wake her up to her own problems.